Welcome to Creative Conversations. I'm Roger Humphrey. In this episode, I welcome back fantasy author Rachel Rossano to talk about her new book, her foray into audiobooks, the pros and cons of self-publishing, and, always much more. Before we begin, please hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons, and all of the other buttons you happen to see down there. It's an easy thing to do, and it really helps to raise the morale in the room. Also, leave a comment and let me know what you think. Your opinion is very important to me. Thanks. And there we are. And we are welcoming to the show back for the second time, Rachel Rossano. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm terrific. Thank you. I'm
Good. Good.
so glad you came back. Didn't
Yeah.
scare you
Thank you
off the
for
first time.
no. Thank you for having me back. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, you've got some stuff going on. You've been a busy woman.
Oh, yeah.
You've got you've got a new book coming out, right?
Yep.
Talk to me. What's that all about?
It's going to be published under my pen name, Alyssa Ray, and it's called Captive Dragon. And it is the first in a new series in the same world as my Elves and my Fae series are. And it's following a dragon he got stuck in a bad situation and he got attacked, and so he's dying. He's been poisoned, and he's in trapped in this cave, and these fae are trying to get at him to do bad things to him. And he gets rescued by this elf, and so the whole story is mostly an exploration of their past and also working toward what is the future going to look like for them. And so
Wow.
it's dealing with grief and loss and a little bit of PTSD and a lot of other stuff, plus a romance and adventure. And it's a bit of a road trip type novel too. So because they're traveling from one point to the other and they're learning about each other and getting to know each other along the journey. So, yeah.
One of the things that I think we learned 60 years ago from the original TV show Star Trek is that you can
Mm.
put a lot of common themes into
Yeah.
uncommon situations like that.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
haven't personally seen any dragons, uh, and yet, or elves, and yet
Mhm.
you can take all of those things and
Yeah.
kind of put it into that kind of a situation and address it
Yeah.
from kind of a neutral point of view.
Yes. Yes. Which I really enjoy about fantasy is that you can address things that are very highly emotionally charged. And because you're addressing them in a context and in a setting that is not our typical setting, you can address them in a different way. And it's not as triggering for those who've gone through it, and it also helps people see it from a different perspective. And I love fantasy for that. It's something I've really enjoyed about fantasy the whole time I've been reading it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess, I appreciate it from that level. It's not a form that I typically follow. However, I respect it very, very highly, in part for that. And also the inventiveness of it. I mean, you're sitting here in 30 seconds and giving me a synopsis and my jaw's going, huh? It's, where do these ideas come from? And so that's my question to you. Where do these ideas come from? Are you just going without
Um,
sleep or what's happening here?
I see. This one started from the idea because I frequently play around with ideas of what would be an interesting combination to put together or scenario and explore from there. And it started out with the idea of a dragon, my dragons are dragon shifters. So they can have a human form and they have a dragon form.
Oh,
But
that's kind of cool. Okay.
dragon that's been so injured and he's stuck in a small space, so a cave, so he can't get out, but he's been so injured he cannot transform again into his human form and get out. And getting a very big, powerful creature trapped in a situation where he can't get himself out and somebody much weaker has to help him. And that was my original idea to start out with. And then the rest of it kind of played out from there. And I was trying to figure out different characters and different connections, like why is he there and what's his backstory, and also trying to figure out what would be a good a good partner for him. And I've in my previous series, I've had light elves and dark elves, and I've hinted at they have a whole nation of twilight elves in the south, and I haven't done much with them. And so this was my initial novel to explore the world building for them and adding it into the world building I've already built, plus dragon world building. So, because this is my first one with dragons, and it's my first one where we actually have a Twilight elf. So you're actually getting the first insight into both of these civilizations and species and how they function, which was a lot of fun because they're very different ways of social functioning. And then just the relationship and learning two different people from two different, very different backgrounds becoming friends and then eventually becoming a romantic relationship, but because and figuring out what are our differences, what are we the same about, where are, what do we agree with, what do we don't agree with, and seeing our each character, seeing their life from the perspective of the person from the other side has was a very fun, interesting thing to play with. So
So
because they both have opinions about how each society functions.
so when you start a series like this, or well, I mean, you
Mhm.
said this is going to be a series, so you know it's going to
Yes,
be. You knew that
yes,
going into it, well, in
yeah.
your mind, but you kind of favor that format anyway, right?
Yes, yes. I favor individually standalone books. Like you could pick up a book from the middle of the series and read it, and it would be a good, enjoyable read. But there's a lot of, like, in this book, some of my elves from my previous series show up because they're friends with the dragon. Um,
Okay,
and
so
we run into, there's a lot of interplay, but the interplay is not necessary in order to enjoy the story. The story by itself will stand by itself.
but we're still in Rachel's universe here. So
Yes. Yep. Yep.
so so when you start a series like this, I mean, say, oh, okay, I'm going to write a series. Uh, do you, in your mind, do you have some sort of a sweeping overview of what's going on, or what? I mean, I can
Sometimes.
see from my perspective, if it were me writing it, I would have some
Yeah.
sort of a few characters, and then once I got into the characters, that's when I'd go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah, the reason I said it's a series is because I have a collection of ideas that I feel are viable story ideas
Okay.
to work on that are solid enough, and I've developed them enough to go, yes, I'm pretty sure I can write a book from this. And I have at least three. I think I have five, if I remember right. But I'm not necessarily going to write five. I know I will at least write three. That's my plan. And then I take each of these stories, and as I'm writing the first story, frequently I will run across characters that are side characters that
Uh-huh.
are really interesting. And I go, oh, I want to explore this person's story in a later story. And they might show up in a later book, or they might actually be the main character of a later book. And I might modify some of my ideas and fit them all together into a new novel that's a combination of both. It's very intuitive, so
Uh-huh.
it's like I get in there and I start writing, and as it flows, I go, hey, this might work. And then I throw something new in there, and yeah, that works. And so, yeah, it's very intuitive, and I have a vague idea where I'm going, but frequently the overarching themes tend to develop as I'm writing. It's not something that I go in and go, okay, this is going to be my theme. It's more of a character led, plot led idea that eventually, you know, it gathers as it goes through this series, and then finally I'm like, oh, this is my theme. Okay, let's finish it out well.
It just sort of floats to the surface. You just look at it and go,
Yeah,
oh, there it is.
yeah,
And
yep,
you've learned to trust your own system to know that that's
yeah,
going to happen.
yeah, yeah.
That's got to be a
Yep.
little difficult at first. Learning to
It
trust
was.
yourself, I think.
It was, and I think I do have a series I wrote that was my only non-standalone series. The Talented series, which is three books of speculative fiction, Christian elements. Um, and that was one huge novel that
Huh?
I ended up putting into three books and made it into a trilogy. And for that one, I planned and plotted a lot more than I usually do. And so I proved to myself I could do it. But then ever since I've done a combination of plotting and just intuitive writing. So between the two, I usually know where I'm going and enough that I go, okay, we're going to end in a good spot. That's what's important. So
So do you start with a kind of an ending first, say this is where I'm going, so this is where I have to start from and that kind of thing. So you kind of know where the destination is, or do you just kind of get into it and say, okay, let's see where this goes?
yeah, I do a combination. Well, I usually start out and I do have an idea of because romance in general is very predictable. You know, you're going to have a happy ending. And you know the happy ending has to look like one of these few varieties.
Sure.
But at the same, and there are a lot of tropes, which are repeated patterns in storytelling. Like in this case, it would be um, a healer type theme would be a trope that would be going on because she's a healer, and there's healing in multiple aspects going on in the storyline. It's going to be a friends to lovers because they're going to start out as friends and they're going to eventually become a married couple. And there's a lot of other aspect, like he's a lost heir, so I know there's certain elements to that storyline that are going to end up in there. Um, and she's a wounded warrior. She's got some PTSD. She's got a little bit of amnesia that's it's been manufactured. It's not just the typical, convenient amnesia. Um,
Okay.
she's dealing with they've actually her people have actually taken some of her memories and blocked them. So for reasons that are part of the plot. I'm dealing with those things. So I know there's certain elements that are going to be in there for that. But yeah, I when I'm building the story, I usually start with their backstory
Uh-huh.
and where are they coming from, what kind of character they are before they meet up or before we start the story. And that will drive some of where we're going. Plus, I will have planned events ahead. So I do know, like in this case, I knew they were going to meet here. And I knew that we were going from there to we're eventually going to end up where he is. And then we're going to have to eventually, resolve her storyline later. And so I had a vague idea of where we were going.
Uh-huh.
But going from point A to point B was a little bit more fuzzy. And that's the exploring part that I enjoy.
I was gonna say that sounds like the fun part.
Yes, it is. It is. It's the characters, the snark, the banter, the throwing obstacles in their way, discovering more about the character by how they interact with others, all that fun stuff. They have a dog. The dog shows up at the beginning. He's with them most of the trip. His Storm, the dragon's cousin, shows up, and the dragon's name is Flare, and the cousin is, and he's like a flirt, and he's causes all kinds of trouble. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy the characters. I enjoy the discovery of how their conversations and discovering the background and revealing them both to myself and to the reader because half of this stuff I know, and half of this stuff is like, okay, it's not nailed down until it's actually on the page.
So
And
you're
then it's
meeting
like,
them for the first time yourself.
to some extent, yes.
So that's kind of
So,
exciting.
yeah, it's fun. It's sort of like when you research a person before you meet them and you go, oh, okay, this person's a CEO or this person's this person, this is his
Uh-huh.
job. And so he's this kind of personality, but you don't really know the person until you sit down and have a conversation with them.
Right.
And then the relationship goes from there. And that's what I enjoy about writing. It's like getting to know a new person and revealing them and prodding them and intuitively going, oh no, that makes sense for this person to respond this way.
I
And
think I
yeah.
think anybody who if you do anything creative at all, I think you have those moments in your form of creativity. I know that
Hmm.
for me, musician, guitar thing, if I'm doing an arrangement, every once in a while, I I'll put my fingers down in a specific place because it seems to be
Yeah.
convenient,
Yeah.
or lift them,
Hmm.
and I'll hit a chord that is surprising. And I go, ooh,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
sometimes I go, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I do both of those.
know, no, I
Yeah.
scratch
I've
that one
had
out.
like I started the next book and I was like sitting down and I'm like, okay, I've got enough structure that I'm going to sit down and start writing this and see how it plays out. And I started writing, I think I wrote 6 paragraphs in my heroine's point of view. And I was like, this is wrong. I'm revealing stuff that I don't want to reveal. And she's coming across the wrong way. And this is up, I'm introducing the world and I'm introducing the meet cute there where they're going to actually meet up, the
Uh-huh.
planned meet up. And I'm just going, no, this is not how I want her to sound. And then I was like, you know what? I don't think this is a good beginning. I'm going to switch to the other guy's, the hero's point of view, and let's come at it from that way. And so, yeah, I scrapped 6 paragraphs and pulled it up and started writing it today. And I think I'm like 3 paragraphs in and already going, yes, this is what I was supposed to do.
I've done that with arrangements. I'll
Yeah,
get into something and I'm, half a page in or even a
yeah.
page in, and that's a lot of notes,
Oh, yeah, it is.
and and I'll play it and I'll go, no, that's not even fixable. I go
Yeah, yeah.
out the
There's
door.
moments you just go, okay, I'm gonna stop trying to hammer this into a good form. I'm
Oh
just gonna
yeah.
scrap it. Let's start over.
So I
Yeah.
know my wife is a very, very talented quilter. And for
Hmm.
anybody who doesn't understand that art form, you really need to owe it to yourself to go to a quilt show sometime because
It's gorgeous.
it's
I
oh my
know my
God,
mom
it's
was.
frightening. And the amount of work that goes into one of those things is just
Oh
downright
yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times she'll come out of her sewing room just steam pounding out of her ears. Yeah, I've just spent the
Oh yeah.
last 2 hours tearing out seams because this was wrong or that was wrong,
Yeah.
and starting all over or having to repair something or change something around and
So frustrating.
she'll buy fabric to go with a specific quilt and then
Hmm.
she'll bring it home and she'll put it with the quilt and she'll go, yuck.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yep.
she really wants it to work. She'll come up to me and say, what do you
Yep.
think? And I go, yeah, no. She says,
No,
yeah.
no. Yeah.
But I think the process, whether you're writing like you're doing or
Hmm.
doing music the way I do or quilting like she does
Yeah.
or sculpting or anything like that, I think
Mhm.
there's a discovery phase and
Yes.
that discovery is not only what it is, but it's also in many cases what it isn't.
Yes.
You
Yes.
find out and go, no, no,
Yeah.
this, and you have to learn to self-edit, and that's hard.
It
Yeah.
is. It is.
I have a friend of mine who's a writer out in Hollywood, writes scripts and
Mhm.
movies and things like that. And he said the first lesson he learned was that you have to be willing to kill your children.
Yes.
And to
It's
anybody who doesn't understand that, what that means is you can write a perfect line or have a
oh yeah.
perfect character, and it just doesn't work here. And you have to say,
It does
I
not.
love
Yeah.
this line, or I love this dialogue, or I
Yeah.
love this character,
Yeah.
and they're gone anyway because it doesn't move the story
Yeah.
forward.
It doesn't move the story forward or it doesn't quite fit the mood or yeah, there's so many yeah, it's nice when those lines actually make it through the editing into the final product. Most of them don't, if for mine anyway. I'll end up in the green.
Giving birth to a book is a hard process.
It is. It is a very hard process.
I think people think that you just sit down and start at the beginning, go to the end, and publish, and it's like, whoa.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So you've got the book coming out. When's the due date? When are you planning up?
Um, October 21st.
Okay, October 21st, 21st.
Yeah,
Okay.
21st. Yep.
And and so you've got that coming out. Um, how many edits did you, I mean, how many times did you have to go through that and go, no, and rewrite and how different is it is the published version from the first page when you first started?
I'm unusual. So, as an author, I hate rewriting. I really hate it with a passion. So, my method is to try, I don't keep writing until I know what I've written foundationally is solid and I'm comfortable with it. And I go, yes, this is the way the story is going to go. So, if I do have to do rewrites, it's maybe a paragraph to 2 paragraphs.
Okay.
I don't usually have to do any major plot changes. I don't usually have to do any major character revamps and having to rewrite every section where the character shows up. There are exceptions, but in general, I try to write a really solid first draft. And then I go through, I edit it, my beta readers go through it, and they read it and give me feedback. I have a professional editor who goes through it. And then and I have my husband reads all my stuff. And once I take all of that feedback and I process all of that and I get my final project, um, then I hand it off right before I upload it and format and everything. I hand it off to a final reader and she proofs it to see if
Wow.
I missed anything. So that way we catch inconsistencies. Like this time, I'm working on edits right now, and like there's inconsistency. Like I remade my heroine's backstory, and I had details that I kept getting wrong. So I'm going through and following the notes from my editor and going, okay, where did I mention this? And then fixing it so it's all cohesive and I didn't make a mistake this time. And those kind of things, those I'm doing at this stage. And then we'll be doing proofreading and then I will format and get it all ready and go up.
Wow.
So it's a lot of work. Usually I can get it done in a few months' time. Like I think I finished this manuscript probably a month ago.
Wow.
So, because and I've been working on it periodically ever since. So, and now I'm processing everybody's feedback and then I'm getting it ready for my final reader. And things are a little tighter than I like this release. So, life circumstances have made it so that I didn't have as much time as I wanted, but that's okay. We're getting a book out and it's still going to be a quality book. So,
Yep, there you go. There you go. How many books have you published now?
oh,
Now,
I think this might be 28.
holy
I
mackerel.
could be wrong. I don't know. I don't keep counts.
That's a lot of books.
Yeah, it is. I've been doing it since before my oldest was born. So probably I've been publishing for 20 years.
Wow.
But I have been writing since I was a teenager, so
Okay.
for much longer. And I've published via blog before that. So,
Wow.
yep.
Wow.
So, yep.
That's now, and
Long.
you self-publish, correct?
Yes, I do. Yep.
So, yeah, and I've said this before with other artists and other and with not only musicians but authors as well, that self-publishing used to kind of have a bad connotation, but anymore it's kind of a smart way to go, I think,
It
for a
is.
lot of people. You don't
Yeah,
have
it is.
you have good distribution this way, don't you? I mean,
Yeah, good
there are new platforms.
distribution, a lot more control. I can control how much it's costing. I can control where it is. I can control what price I'm setting. I can control a lot of things, which is something that I have published with a small press before, and I've also published with a pseudo scam company. That was the first one I did. And yeah, so I've had experience with those, and I don't like the lack of control because they made some decisions and I was just like, that wasn't what I'd like, but that's okay. I just have to run with it because I'm working with them and I have to be professional. But, I like doing it myself. There's things I would like to do that I can't because I'm doing it by myself. But it's a trade-off. Everything is trade-offs,
Oh, sure.
There's things you want and things you don't want, and you have to make the best combination choice that works for you. And this works for me for now.
That's apparently. So you said pseudo scam. I think that we've seen that in the music business a lot too, where and I still
Gotcha.
get it on podcasts. I get people probably 3, 4 times a week. I get email from somebody who's going to make me rich and famous with my podcast, and
I know.
and all I have to do is come up with a lot of money up front, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
no, don't
Yeah.
want to do that. So
No, no, don't want to
so
do that.
so I, I actually was in a meeting about 3 weeks ago with a guy from London who,
Hmm.
this and that and the other. And, and he approached me, of course, and did all this
Right.
stuff. And I spent an hour and a half on video chat with him one
Hmm.
morning. And we talked about all this kind of stuff. And then I hit the magic words and I said, well, it's just a little boutique podcast and I don't have a lot of money. and he
Right.
lost interest.
I'm not surprised. I'm sorry to say I'm not
No,
surprised.
and this type of thing
Yeah,
has been going on forever. Just
yeah, yeah.
musicians who record out of pocket. They used to call them vanity projects, and
Hmm.
um, and there was always somebody who was going to
Oh, yeah.
take
Make
you to
money
the
off
next
of it.
level. And it's like they didn't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all
I've had so many they contact me through my website, they contact me through, they get my email somehow and they contact me and like, "Oh, we're going to promote, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that." And I'm sitting here going, "No, you won't." Especially if you're coming to me with a book I probably published 10 years ago and you're trying to tell me this is the wonderful book. And I'm going, okay, I've done a lot more since then. And I don't know what you're talking about because this is a book that's been out there for quite a while.
Yeah, it's out there. Uh, I I have a phrase that I learned a long time ago. I didn't invent it, but I use it all the time, and it's called pick and shovel companies, and
Mm,
it's in reference to the gold rush of 1849 in San Francisco,
yeah.
and they
Yep.
had all these stories of people who had come to San Francisco dreaming of just they were going to go in the hills and mine for an
Yeah.
afternoon if it was a good day and come back with a sack full of gold and go back home.
Mhm.
And so they're going into the hardware stores and they're renting mules and wheelbarrows and picks and shovels. And the people
Yep.
who made the most money during the gold rush were those hardware
Renting
companies and
stuff.
deliveries and places like that, pick and shovel companies. Yeah, we'll
Yep.
help you.
Yeah.
And it never occurred to the people who were renting the
Yeah.
stuff from them that these
Right.
people aren't in the hills getting it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so these companies are around all the time still. So I get these
Mhm.
pick and shovel, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll sell you
Yep.
the tools. Let us show you
Yeah.
how to do it. It's like,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
pass.
Yeah. No, I'll pass. Yeah. I've been publishing on a shoestring budget for a long time. I will continue doing so.
But it's interesting because I know, for example, I wrote years ago. I wrote a guitar method book for
Mhm.
children, for very young children,
Right. Right.
and and uh, and through a series of events and people that I knew, it ended up in the desk of a fairly reputable publishing company, small family operated publishing company.
Hmm.
And and I talked to and I get a call from the, the head of the company whose name was on it, and he said, yeah, he says, I think this is really good. He said, I'd really like to do this. Let's publish this. And I said, okay, the next thing I know, he's making all kinds of changes, and
Yeah.
he's changing all of the graphics that I put in there for no other reason
Mhm.
than and I knew what was going on. I mean, instinctively, I knew that the more
Yeah.
changes he made, the less money I made.
Yeah.
That he would claim more of that, more of that, more of that, and
Yeah.
then by the time the dust settled, I'd end up owing him money. So I ended up
Oh
turning
yeah.
the deal down. And a lot of people were
I,
surprised. I said, Ben, you have no idea what the deal was.
no,
It was not a
no.
good deal.
That's part of that one of those trade-offs that I'm not comfortable with
Yeah,
because they're just like, oh, let's make this more like everybody else. And I
right.
think the appeal that most of my readers like is I'm not just like everybody else. And I don't write like everybody else, which is part of why I'm self-publishing in the first place, because
Right.
I couldn't find a publisher who wanted what I was writing. And I couldn't get myself to write anything else. So it's like,
But you have
okay,
your audience. You have your
I
audience.
have an audience. Yes. And I knew I had an audience because once I started getting it out there, I found people who were like, oh, I love this. Keep writing more. And so I have an audience. It's not huge, but it's there and it's been there the whole time I've been publishing.
And those are the people who are going
And
to support you.
yeah, they are. And I've got people who've been around and supporting me since I started.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
It's awesome. Yeah.
so now your stuff is also out in audiobook too, right? Some of it?
I just got my feet wet I think it was this past year.
Okay.
So so I've got three books out. Three, two of them are with Tantor, which is an audiobook publisher. That was one of those emails that showed up in my email box, and I had heard from other authors who do something similar that they had Tantor. So I reached out to them and I said, "Is this legit?" And they said, "Does it look like this?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Yeah, that's legit. We've gone that way." And I asked them for feedback. And then I talked through with my husband, and it was a win-win situation for us. I get my feet wet with audiobook, and it didn't cost me anything. They were going to pay me for it. So I'm like, okay, let's go for it. So they signed a contract for the first two books of my Phase series that I was just releasing. And they have first pick on the third book when I eventually write it, which I'm starting to write now.
Okay.
So I that was really good. And then on top of that, I have a friend who is trying to get into doing audiobooks. And we've been friends since we were teenagers, young teenagers. And so she was like, "Could I try this out on some of your books?" And I said, "Sure." So I handed her one of my really short stories that have been out there, Word and Deed, under my original name, Rachel Rossano. And so she took that and she produced an audiobook for that. And I put that one up. So she's working on another one of my really older works. And so I'm probably going to have another one in the next year or so, whenever she has time. She's a working mom, so she's got a lot going on, and I'm
Yeah,
not pressuring her because I'm
sure.
not in a major hurry. So yeah, it's been a learning experience. I'm still trying to figure out how to promote audiobooks. So it's a new challenge.
It's the whole marketing and promotion thing. When you're with a publisher, they handle most of that for you. When
Yes.
you're out there by yourself and you're a one-person show, that means you got to know every aspect of the show.
Yeah.
It's
And it's hard. It's good. It's especially the product I'm putting out is shorter. These are novellas and a short story.
uh-huh.
So I'm hoping to eventually get to where I'm doing the novels, but the novels cost more. It's like it costs per produced hour. And so it costs a lot more for a novel. If the novel, like the one I just put out, was like 80,000 words, and that's a lot of time to produce that,
Right.
which means I want to pay a good wage to the person producing it, but at the same time, that's prohibitively expensive on my budget. So it's trying to figure out how to balance those two
So are you
aspects.
doing the reading yourself, or other than your friend who is doing some of it? But
No, the production company Tantor, they had people, they have actors
oh,
under contract.
gotcha.
And they suggested some actors to me. I listened to their reading of some segments of my story. I gave feedback on the voices they were choosing and decided I had veto if I wanted to veto. And yeah, so it was a whole process. It was a very interesting process. I never realized how picky I was about voices until I listening to the reading and going, "No, that's not right. Let me see if I can describe why it's not right." So that was a very interesting experience. They did a wonderful job. The actors they produced a good job, and the product is really good. So Tantor was very nice and very good to work with. So
That makes a big difference. That makes a huge difference. So now have these been released yet?
yes, they are all three on Audible, and the Fae books, the Courts in Conflict, are available a lot of different other places too.
So now
So
can we find these different places through your website?
um, I'm trying to remember if I have a link to those. I don't think I've updated it yet. It's been a crazy year. It's now on my list of things to do as I'm updating everything for the release. I will
Got
update that too.
okay, okay. So what I
Yeah.
will do is I will put a link to your website uh,
Hmm.
down there in the
Okay.
description, and
Sounds
then
great.
so if you do yours part, then
Yes.
people can find it.
They can find it.
Well, Rachel, thank you
Yep.
so much for taking the time to talk to me this afternoon. I really, really, really appreciate it. Appreciate
Yes.
you
Thank
doing
you.
this. Good luck with all of that stuff, and
Okay.
we'll keep
Thank
in touch. We'll get you back on here again pretty soon.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.
I'd like to thank Rachel for taking the time to talk about her books, her process, and other projects. If you'd like to know more or get one of her books, you can just visit her website. There's a link in the description below. Also, don't forget to go to www.rogerhumphrey.com and subscribe to my blog. It's a great way to get updates on all of my guests. And I promise, no spam. Ever. And thank you also for spending time with us. Don't forget to grab some friends and share some of your favorite episodes of Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey.